Welcome to our first active years of breaking news. Yes, India, in a significant diplomatic mood, has spearheaded recommendations for Canada to fortify measures preventing attacks on worship places and effectively address hate speech. The proposals were presented during the UN Human Rights Council review meeting, where diplomats from India, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka shared their insights and recommendations. Indian diplomat Mohammad Hussain noted legislative enactments such as the National Housing Strategy Act and the Accessible Canada Act while addressing the issue at the council meeting. At the meeting, Bangladesh diplomat Abdullah Al-Farhat urged Canada to intensify its efforts to combat racism, hate speech, hate crimes, and discrimination against migrants and Muslim minorities. Al-Farhat, however, commended Canada's progress in the protection of human rights and strategy to combat human trafficking. Bangladesh called for measures to be taken to reduce carbon emissions and address the negative impacts of climate change. We commend the valuable progress made by Canada in the promotion of the protection of human rights. We acknowledge the ongoing implementation of its nationalist strategy to combat human trafficking 2019 to 2024. In spite of cooperation, Bangladesh offers recommendations of Canada intensify its efforts to combat racism, hate speech, hate crimes, and discrimination against migrants and Muslim minorities, take necessary measures to reduce carbon emissions and strengthen international cooperation in addressing the negative impacts of climate change, and consider ratifying International Convention on the Protection of the Rights of All Migrants, Workers and Members of Their Families, Al-Farhat said. We note the enactment of the National Housing Strategy Act, Accessible Canada Act, and National Strategy to Combat Human Trafficking, Indian diplomat Mohammad Hussain said on the occasion. Hussain added, India recommends the following to Canada: further strengthen the diplomatic framework to prevent misuse of freedom of expression, for inciting violence and disallow activities of groups that are promoting extremism, effectively prevent attacks on places of worship of religious and racial minorities, strengthen legislative and other measures to address hate crimes and hate speech. Meanwhile, Sri Lankan diplomat Thilani Jayasankara also urged Canada to agree to the Convention on the Protection of Rights of All Migrant Workers, take appropriate steps to combat racial discrimination against immigrants' rights, oppose misinformation against minorities, and strengthen its national mechanism for comprehensive reporting and follow-up on global human rights recommendations. Sri Lanka welcomes the cooperation extended by the Government of Canada during the visit of UN special reporters on contemporary forms of slavery and on the rights of indigenous people. Sri Lanka recommends Canada to 1. Adhere to the Convention on the Protection of Rights of All Migrant Workers and Members of Their Families, 2. Continue to take measures against racial discrimination, in particular to avoid discriminatory policies and regulations affecting the rights of immigrants, including in the area of health. Ben the report for TV.